Hi, Brave family. I'm Jennifer Marshall, Executive Director of This Is My Brave, and thank you so much for tuning in to Season 1 of Brave TV. Brave TV, the pilot series, was created as an immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic to bring stories of hope directly to the homes of our audience. Each week, we cover different topics that our own Brave alumni could lend their expertise on. Brave TV gives our alumni an opportunity to share their stories on another platform, talk about their journey with This Is My Brave, and offer support and resources to viewers who may be having similar struggles, especially during such a high-stress time. We successfully created 10 episodes of Brave TV for the pilot series, and now we are moving forward with the official season 1 of Brave TV, thanks to the Alkermes Inspiration Grant COVID-19 Relief Fund. Each week, we will continue to explore how COVID-19 and current affairs are impacting our mental health. For our first episode of the season, we have 3 of our Brave alumni to kick it off. Natasha A. Pierre from our Orlando 2019 show, Rudy Caceres from our Los Angeles 2017 show, and Takea Blackman from our Arlington 2018 show. With July being Minority Mental Health Month, we wanted to hear from our alumni of color who have so bravely shared their stories on our stages. Today, we're going to have some honest conversations about finding hope and support in light of everything that is happening in our world today. Let's get started. So our first guest is Rudy Caceres. Rudy was part of our 2017 Los Angeles show. Rudy, it's so good to see you.
Yes, no, it's great. I've been a part of the This Is My Brave family for quite some time. Like you mentioned, I did the 2017 show as a cast member, and I was a producer for the LA show the following year in 2018, where I proposed to one of the cast members. So that was fun.
Surprised us all.
Yeah, and I think I've seen 2 other This Is My Brave shows at least. So I am well indoctrinated.
Yes, you are. It's so good to have you back again. And tell us, Rudy, take us back to before your show in 2017, because you and I met, I feel like a year or so before that. I'm trying to remember exactly the moment. Do you remember?
Yes, we met at the first LA show, the Shades of Blue one with Amy Ferris.
Yes, I
So
really
yeah,
remember
that
that.
was in Hollywood. Oh man, that feels like that was 2015. That feels like
It was.
I feel like a different person from then. And then we reconnected at NamiCon in Denver the following year, and then it just kept building it on and on and on. And then we did Brave Chat live together for about 6 or 8 months. So
Yeah, we did.
you've pretty much have like put me in every role possible.
Well, we've been so lucky to have you, Rudy. And I want to hear about a little bit about your decision to participate in This Is My Brave and tell your story on stage, because you did a very dramatic reenactment, really, of Mania. And can you talk a little bit about that piece that you shared on stage in January 2017?
Yes, so I'm always the kind of person who wants to do something different. Just wants to break the mold. Sometimes to my detriments, but mostly to my benefit though. And so I had the idea of doing some kind of performance piece because my background is in theater. So I've done plays, musicals, don't laugh. And it's something that I've missed for so long. And the few times where I tried doing theater after my mental breakdown in the Army in 2009, I just couldn't get it together. Like I would have breakdowns and rehearsal and all that stuff. So I moved on to public speaking and sharing my personal story, which is great because it's like I'm the star of the show every time, but I missed that theatrical side. So I had the idea of basically a reenactment of what my manic mind is like, because oftentimes you see the mania in movies or even from a third person perspective, but very few can get into the mind of someone who is actively manic. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have anything really written down until like the day of. I remember I went to an AFSP walk, and then I went to a pizza place that was about a few blocks away from the rehearsal of the audition space. And I basically wrote this thing out in like 3 or 4 hours, and then read it in the audition space. And I guess it went well because I got to go on stage and perform it. I remember Susie Faber Hamilton was in the audience, and she messaged me out of the blue. So that felt like, oh, I must be doing something right. The Mighty converted it into a short film, which had hundreds of thousands of views. So yeah, that was definitely one of my biggest moments, getting on stage and sharing my story.
It really did take us there, Rudy. And having gone through it myself, I really could relate so much to what you shared. And, it really is important for us to educate through our storytelling what it feels like, and that you were able to find recovery. I mean, can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you, really being able to find, because you're thriving right now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely storytelling. Like you don't need me to give the whole pitch about it saving lives. I think we know by now that it does. You certainly have done the research yourself. So surprise, surprise, it does. Storytelling does save lives, and it certainly saved mine and continues saving mine. So whenever I have my darkest times, even now, like the way I can like really get through that is like by connecting with others. And thankfully, through the pandemic, like we're still able to do things like this, where I haven't talked to you in ages, easily over a year, and because we kind of like have our like whole world on pause, we can do projects like this. We can reconnect with old friends,
Mm-hmm.
and really, really like find different ways to have storytelling. And so that's been my biggie. I've hosted my own storytelling events. I did a virtual one about a month ago. And so, I mean, that's my jam. And so when I found out that I can share my story in front of people and wasn't going to freak people out, people would actually want to hear it. People would actually pay me for it sometimes. It just like, boom, like a rocket ship, just like, that's the thing that saved me. Pretty much nothing else.
Yeah. Oh, I can relate completely. Um, and you went on to, I mean, that wasn't the first time that you told your story in a public format, but you went on. I've watched you over the years do keynote speeches and be leading things like SPSM chat in a virtual capacity, and just getting out there and putting yourself out there to help others. Would you say that This Is My Brave might have been the start to that, or?
Yeah, like you had mentioned, I had been sharing my story for a little bit. I'd done some NAMI stuff. I'd done some stuff with Active Minds and school and stuff, but it really took it to the next level with This Is My Brave, because I hope everyone watching us right now has seen at least a YouTube video. You really put it in a nice package. You get a nice theater. It's expertly, professionally recorded and edited and everything. So you get a really nice package, and you can shop that out to other people who might want to know, like, hey, like I need some video of you speaking before I hire you. So yeah, definitely once I was able to have that in my bag of tricks to be able to show people like, hey, I did this thing. It was huge. It wasn't just me speaking in front of like a nursing class of 4 people. And so, yeah, it definitely made a big difference. And yeah, that definitely helped set off that rocket ship.
And you got to meet so many other folks, and I know you keep in touch with a bunch of This Is My Brave alums. And I have to give a shout out to Richard Brea, who was going to be with us tonight, and you jumped in to take his place. His family has gone through a loss over this COVID pandemic. His dad tragically passed away from the virus, and we send our hearts out to Richard. And but I know you guys became good friends during the process of that show, and it's the Brave family definitely has become this community, and I think we've always wanted to support each other and getting our stories out and sharing. So
Yeah, no, I love Richard. He's a great person. We first connected, I think, on Instagram, and we were just like liking each other's posts, boosting each other, like supporting each other. And then I found out that he was going to audition for This Is My Brave. And I'm like, oh, well, this is so awesome if we got to work together. Like, I don't even think I knew that he lived in the LA area at the time.
Yeah.
So we made it happen. I got to learn more about his story. He got to learn more about mine. We got to perform on the same stage. I think he was first too. So
He did
that's
go
not
first.
easy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's an awesome person. My heart goes out to him. And when I found out that you needed someone to step in specifically for him, I was like, yes, like I hope I can reconnect with him, because
Yeah.
we moved away and we like went our separate ways, unfortunately. But I definitely want to, now that I know all of this backstory, I definitely want to reconnect with him, because another cliche alert, life is too short. So
Too
you
short.
have to make sure that you keep the good people in your life close to you. And that's definitely what I wanted to do with Richard as soon as possible. He's awesome. He's awesome. He's a great person. One of the nicest people in the world.
He is, for sure. And I know, Rudy, you left LA and now you're in Colorado.
Yes, I'm actually in a hotel room right now. So pardon the poor art style in the back. It's
No.
hotel chic. So yeah, for various reasons. I mean, LA. It's just I felt like I conquered LA, so I have to move on.
Yeah.
um,
No,
but
it's
no,
cool.
but I mean, my wife does peer support, so she's just like instantly got a great job here, and I work remotely, so it doesn't really matter where I work. I mean, that's one of the things I discovered about the pandemic. To put a silver lining, I guess, even though there's a lot of horrible things about it, is that it really struck home that for better or worse, like you can really still be a product. Like it doesn't really matter where I live if you're
Mhm.
watching this. I mean, I can give a little bit more insight. I can give you some tips on like nice restaurants in Denver, I guess, but it doesn't really change me who I am as an advocate. So I feel like in this day and age, a lot of people, you can kind of just move around the world and still be the same person and still put on the same kind of content.
I think
So
that's what we're learning definitely through this is technology does connect us, and that's why I'm so glad you're here. You're with us, you're making it happen, and we really appreciate you. So Rudy, thank you for your intro. I'm gonna have you, we're gonna reconnect when we get all four of us together. We're gonna invite our next guest on. So we're gonna welcome Takea. So we'll be right back. Hi, Takea. You're muted.
Hi, Jen.
Now I can hear you. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a little tough.
It's been rough. I
Mm-hmm.
feel you. I so appreciate you taking the time out to speak tonight on Brave TV, today on Brave TV. We're pre-recording. So we're going to be with everyone in the chat. So if anyone has questions while we're chatting and introducing everybody, feel free to chime in. But Takea, I love the story of how you found This Is My Brave. Will you share with everyone how you found us?
Yeah, when I wanted to get more involved in mental health, and I just wanted to start to connect with others who are doing similar work, I just started unfollowing people who was not about like mental health or wellness, and I just started following a whole bunch of mental health organizations, and that's how I stumbled upon This Is My Brain.
We were so lucky that you found us because you brought such a light into the organization, and you told your story first in the show that Kate Mallow produced back in, it was the spring of 2018. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
It was a very great experience because it brought my family together. I had like over 30 people in the audience, and it was a great opportunity for my family to see what I've overcome, but having the courage to be able to share surviving suicide and what that time was like for me. It educated my family on mental health, and also it really dismantled the stigma. And so now, because of This Is My Brave and my experience, my family, we talk about it very openly all the time.
It's so good. And, you know, my family, when I first shared my story publicly, they were a little bit nervous about the potential, you know, discrimination I could face going back into the workforce and whatnot. And we overcame it together as a family. And I love that you and your family were able to do that together as well.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, just because I don't have to act like everything is okay or put on a front. I can just show up as my authentic self, even when I'm struggling.
And that's so important. It makes us feel whole, right? I mean, it makes us feel like the human that we are, and we experience the ups, we experience the downs, and it's okay to be real. So I love that. Since you participated in This Is My Brave, then you went on to co-produce a show.
Yes, I did.
Like 6 months later, right?
With Susie, yeah, it was great. I was excited to do it because I have a production background, so it was great for me to be able to combine my passion for mental health and use my production skills to help produce that show. And what made it special too was that my brother was a part of that show that I produced, and he talked about some of his struggles through rap. And This Is My Brave, because of his experience with This Is My Brave, has even brought us closer together to talk more about mental health. So I really enjoy the opportunity to be able to give others the chance to share their stories, because now, like you said, it's like you always talk about how it's just like you throw a rock or a pebble and then it just has a ripple effect. So yeah, I can say that it's definitely been that ripple effect.
That was from Anne-Marie, my late co-founder, said that she made that statement back when we filmed the first promo video. And you were in one of our promo videos back, gosh, what year was that? That was 2018 as well. But the first promo video Anne-Marie and I filmed, she said, it feels like we're throwing a pebble into the lake and it just is going to ripple out and more people are going to hear the stories. So because of you, lots of stories have gotten out onto the stage, and we so appreciate you being a part of the Brave family. I am so proud of you too, you wrote your book, and that was published, was it last year?
Yeah, it was published last year. It was very scary. It was a little scary, but it was also very rewarding because I got to share everything. I did not hold anything back. I was able to show up again as my authentic self and really talk about mental health, but as it relates to the Christian faith. And so I, talked about some of the things that was said to me out of love. People meant well, but they were just uneducated, and really just wanting to dismantle specifically within the African American church, so that people know that faith and mental health can coexist, but we also should be mindful of the things that we say, because sometimes it can make people feel worse. And so I also wrote it as an educational tool. I wrote it as a way to be free of all stigma from mental illness, and also as an opportunity to helpfully inspire other people through their stories.
It's beautiful. And it's available on your website and on Amazon?
Yes.
All right, we're going to share those links because people need to pick up the book. And plus, you do have your podcast as well. Will you tell people a little bit about your podcast?
Yes, my podcast, that's my baby. I have a mental health podcast, and it really shares the perspective of people of color who live and thrive with mental health conditions, and really to normalize the mental health conversation. So it's a great opportunity to be able to talk about an array of mental health topics, things that a lot of times we talk about mental health, but I think I also like to make the connection to show that there are so many things that impact our mental health, from our finances to our jobs to our relationships. And so I really work on making the connection so we can see how everything in our life does impact our mental health, and just really talk about mental wellness overall.
Yeah, it's that thing we talk about often about how mental health is just as important as physical health. It's like we do so much to take care of our physical health, but we're not doing as much. I think things are shifting, and I think things like your podcast are educating people on how all those different facets of our life need to be things we think about because they impact our mental health. So important. I'm so proud of you. You've just contributed so much to the mental health movement, and it's awesome.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Kia, for your intro. I'm going to bring you back in a little bit. We're going to say hi to our third guest, Natasha Pierre. Hey, Natasha.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Despite everything that's going on.
Despite everything, yes, yes.
It's so good to see you, and it's so good to be able to do this and connect and bring our alumni together. So will you tell everyone a little bit about your This Is My Brave experience? Give them your background and where you're zooming in from, and then we'll give us your intro.
Absolutely. So I live in Tampa, Florida, and I was part of the This Is My Brave September 2019 cast. And how I heard about This Is My Brave was from, I believe, searching on Eventbrite for events, and there was going to be a screening of the documentary at the University of South Florida. So, of course, naturally, at that time, I was looking for opportunities to get a little bit more active or involved in mental health advocacy, and I call it slowly coming out of the mental illness closet. And I saw the documentary, I met you, and that was April 2019. And that was the day, the defining moment for me when I said, yeah, this is it. It's time for me to live bravely. And hearing your story, seeing everyone in the documentary, my entire life and world changed from that day.
Wow. I didn't know it meant that much to you. I really loved meeting you that day. We got to chat after the talk, and I got a huge hug. And I mean, I learned about you. You had a background in coaching already. So you were already kind of putting yourself out there as, you know, living a positive life and the things we need to be doing. But like that, it means a lot to me to hear that that kind of was a turning point a little bit for you. Because
It was.
look at what you're
I
doing
said,
now.
huh?
I said, look at what you're doing now. It's
I
amazing.
know. You know what I realized that day is that I still had some self-stigma. You know, I could coach someone else through their mental health journey and walk someone else through it and encourage them. But for me, I was still a little afraid of fully coming out and sharing my story. And you know why there is stigma, but that was a defining moment. I learned of the auditions happening in Orlando. And I learned about it like the day before auditions close. And so I asked, like, can I please audition via, send a video? And it was like, yes. And I maybe in, I'd say overnight, really overnight, I had a download of my presentation. I wrote it out. It was like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I added a little bit to it, sent it in, and I was selected for the cast. And when I did the show, that was the first time that I had publicly shared my story. And it was such a cathartic moment for me to really take back my power and to say, you know what, I don't care what you think of people with a bipolar diagnosis. This is me, take it or leave it, and I'm never going back into that closet again.
I hear you. I felt the same way. I almost, the first time I told my story in the 2014 show, felt like a physical weight was lifted off my shoulders that I had been carrying for so long. And like Kia had just said, I mean, it's this feeling of being able to be your authentic self and share not only all the pretty fun, exciting moments in your life, but talk about the struggles too. It's what makes us human.
You know, hiding is heavy. Hiding is exhausting. And I feel like for so much of my life, I was driving in the exit ramp, ready to pull off, ready to hide, ready to tuck myself away somewhere. And I wasn't living my life full throttle because I had this secret that I was carrying and hoping that no one would find out. And as soon as I told my story, as soon as I shared it unapologetically, it's like, okay, well, there's that. What's next? And it's been an amazing journey ever since.
And so your latest update is your new role at NAMI Hillsborough. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, during the time of learning about This Is My Brave, I connected with NAMI Hillsborough and, of course, was a member, and then became a board member, and then vice president. And so July 1st, I began as the executive director for NAMI Hillsborough. And it really just continues my advocacy. Everything that NAMI stands for is what I have long been: the mental health education, support, advocacy, outreach, all so that everyone that's affected by mental illness can live better lives, free of stigma, with access to all of the resources that they need. So I'm at home.
Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. So awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to chat more. Thank you for your introduction. Let's bring everybody together and really dive into a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the gang is together. We're bringing the band back.
I was scared to be the first person to come back.
So let's jump right in. My first question is, what made you guys decide to really jump in with your full heart and make this your purpose in life? Like, does anyone have that story of, Natasha kind of just talked about her kind of pivotal moment, but for Kia, for Rudy, was there one thing where you were just like, I'm all in, this is me, and I want to make this my purpose?
That's a good question, because I feel like there's been quite a few different ones. I remember one in particular, like I won't say their name, but it was one of my first big speaking jobs, and they flew me out there to go speak at a mental health suicide prevention event. And after it was over, they said, you have a long way to go as a speaker. Like, I feel like I didn't get what I paid for, basically. And at the time, like, I was like, really? Like, I felt like I just completely knocked it out of the ballpark. And it's funny, like, some people, like, it's funny what some people's motivations are. I guess it says a lot about people. But for me, it's when someone says that I can't do something, it's just, I get like laser sight on that. I'm just like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do it 10 times better than you ever did. And I'm going to move beyond that. It's going to be moved beyond just proving people wrong. It's just about like wanting to improve myself and just wanting to do better and better and better. Like I'm just like that. I just like, once I get focused on something, I just want to just keep improving and improving. So it's funny how I'm sure other people have much different stories than that. But for me, like, when I knew that this was going to be a thing, it was because I already had that spark there, but it just like, oh, I have to not only prove her wrong, but I also, like, I know I can do it. I know I can be the best that I can be.
That's awesome. And Kia, I wonder for you, was it when you launched the podcast? Because I feel like when did you launch? Which year?
I launched the podcast in January of 2018.
And that was kind of around the time when you jumped in to This Is My Brave.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you have this passion for it, and you're such a great interviewer. And I wonder, like, was that for you a turning point where you were like, this podcast is going to be my way of making a mark in the world?
It was part of it. Part of it was because there were podcasts out there that were by therapists, but I'm like, what about the consumer?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to provide that perspective. I think the other part of it was, I think Natasha's talked about just hiding and how exhausting it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was just tired of not being able to show up as myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that I was able to own my story and live in my truth, I became free.
Mm.
And from that moment forward, I said, there's no going back. There's no going back. And I just wanted to be able to be my authentic self. And it's given me the freedom to help others along the way. At first it was just like, wow, this is so freeing doing this for myself. But then other people start coming to you because you start to, by you being so free and open and transparent with your story, it gives them the permission to do the same.
Yes, I firmly believe that. And I've seen it happen. Just this past weekend, I was updating my personal website, and as I'm updating it, clicking the buttons to change a color here or there, I got an email from a young woman in Florida who said, I'm 21 years old. I just got diagnosed with bipolar. I found your blog and your words are bringing me to tears. Thank you for, and guys, that's why we do what we do, because we get those notes from people who say, your story helped me. So it means a lot. Well, speaking of being true to ourselves and talking about the hard stuff, how has everyone been coping with what's going on with the pandemic, the ups and downs? Share some personal stories on how that's going.
Well, for me, in the beginning, I really wasn't anxious at all. And, I spoke with several of my friends and I said, is it me? Am I underreacting? And they said, yeah. And I realized that when you live with anxiety for a really long time, having a fear of the unknown, when there's actually something that you can identify as the source of your fear, it's like, oh, okay, I've been there. I've had a lot of practice with anxiety. As time went on, I know 8 people personally who have had coronavirus. 3 unfortunately died. And for me, it is part of what creates the anxiety is that we really aren't sure how it's transmitted. There's speculation. Can you get it more than once? And that's part of the anxiety. For me, I'm doing everything that I can, setting my boundaries, ensuring that I'm limiting contact with other people. I'm, of course, wearing my mask, and I'm staying away from everything that could affect my mental health. I don't want to worry about, have I been exposed? And so that's really what I have been doing. I know I'm, of course, supporting a lot of other people through the NAMI support groups. And it's interesting to see how differently people have been affected and impacted. And my words to myself are that I am to observe, but not absorb. That's how I'm responding to it all.
That's good advice, Natasha. I like that. And I think definitely limiting exposure to news and even social media have been helpful to me. What about you guys, Rudy and Takea?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like I was ahead of the curve because I had already been doing a lot of online video and live streaming, and just in general, just connecting with people online. Like, I connected with you, Jen, online, and we did the Brave Chat live, and that was a good experience. And doing stuff with other organizations, doing my own show, SPSM Chat, talking about suicide, which sounds very dark, but I enjoy it. So I feel like that hasn't changed, and if anything, it's confirmed like the value of what we're doing right now. Like, some people think like, oh, it's just people talking on a Zoom chat, whatever. There's not real connection there. But just hearing all of your stories, being able to recollect memories that feel like it's ages ago, that sound like, sometimes feel like that's the main coping thing for me, is that I sometimes feel like these feelings that we're talking about, these memories, are never going to come back. And that's what gives me the anxiety. But until then, because there's still a lot of ifs and what's in the air, and you can't control that for the most part, we can do things like this. We can still have our hangouts. Yes, it'll never be exactly the same as when you can talk to someone face to face and interact, but this is still pretty cool. This definitely helps me just cope through and get through the just the stressful times that this pandemic has caused us. So yay for this.
Yeah.
Boo for most other things.
And I have to be really honest, like, I had a med change through this whole thing, and it was tough. But I was so fortunate to have that access to the telehealth that, got passed so quickly. The access to care has been helpful. Kia, what's helped you through this?
One of the things that has been a help for me is my morning walks. I usually walk anywhere from 4 to 6 miles each morning during the week. That has been helpful because during this time, I've taken a hiatus from social media. I haven't really been on social media at all, just because can be overwhelming for me to be bombarded with not just messages from other people, but just seeing content all the time and not having a break from the content. I think the other part of it was for me at the beginning of the pandemic. For me, I got a new diagnosis. Initially, it was just major depressive disorder, but earlier this year, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so it's been very challenging for me just even as of recently, because currently I'm in a depressive state and have been struggling with suicidal thoughts, and actually just got a med changed yesterday. So it's been very, very challenging for me, but my walks have been helpful in the morning. But it's definitely been hard. And I think what has been helping me is I'm not just walking by myself, I'm walking with 3 other women. And so getting out and getting that socialization also helps too. So I'm not being so isolated.
Oh, it's so good for you. And the vitamin D of the sun, I was going to ask you guys if you make it a point to get outside to soak in that sunshine, because it makes such a difference for me on the days when it's sunny and I'm out there for even 20 minutes to get that vitamin D. And then the days that it's cloudy, it's tough. You got to use other coping skills, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. I think, definitely the sun. And also on days when there's increased anxiety, getting out and walking can relieve some of those nerves, some of that tension, and ensure that I can sleep at night.
Definitely. And Rudy, you were saying about you have a dog now. So you adopted a dog, what, 2 years ago?
Last January. She's 2 years old now, and she's completely spoiled. It's like half the reason why we moved is so she can have a bigger place. So, but yeah, no, it's she's definitely helped me get outside, and I like going in my car. I put the top down and I just like drive, and just that's one of the another silver linings. I don't want to say good things about the pandemic, but is that there's not as much traffic, especially when I was living in LA. So you can kind of just go for these long drives and just kind of just be less stressful, as opposed to like complete gridlock most of the times. I know not everyone can have that benefit but everything, but I've been trying to do all I can to still live my life the way I was living before, and also try to like really figure out like what are the things that I was doing that I don't really miss. Like I don't like things like going out to like the movie theater or going to like buy clothes or anything that can now be delivered or curbside pickup. I was like, I don't miss that at all. Not again, it sucks that the pandemic had to cause all these things, but these were things that I was kind of assuming would happen in the future, just got accelerated. So long story short, I walk my dog for vitamin D.
That's good. That's good. And I agree with you. Finding those things that had little return for us during the pre-pandemic, we're finding what's really meaningful to us, and taking time to connect with you guys is truly meaningful, and I really appreciate you being with us tonight. Couple more questions and then we will wrap things up. But with July being Minority Mental Health Month, what do you guys think is important for folks to know in terms of minority mental health?
I'd say that, within the community of people who are affected by mental illness, there are also smaller communities. So there are LGBTQ, Latino, Black, mothers, military. There are a lot of communities within the larger community, and it's important that we understand that each community has different needs and may encounter mental illness in a different way. With everything that, I mean, coronavirus is affecting everyone. That's one layer. Mental illness, that's another layer. But when there are unique either challenges or barriers or to accessing treatment, or there's like, you know, there's a lot of racial tension in the United States right now. Those are added components or added stressors to a person who already has and lives with a mental illness. So what I say is, you know what, understanding the culture, understanding the community should help to inform your interaction. It should give you a layer of empathy to better understand how to engage and to understand someone's story. Because, you know, just because 3 people have bipolar disorder doesn't mean they experience it in the same way, and doesn't mean that the world's events and life's events are going to affect them in the same way. We should be sensitive to that.
I agree with you completely. And, you know, it was interesting. All 4 of us live with bipolar. I don't think I realized that when we first were talking until we all really disclosed. And because Kia had the diagnosis of major depression first. And really, I think a lot of people struggle with getting the correct diagnosis for a long time, sometimes up to 10 years or more. And that's, I think, number one in really finding solid recovery is getting that proper diagnosis, which takes time. Okay, last question for you all. I always like to end with this. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our viewers with? It
That's
could
a
be
great
anything.
question.
There's so much. It is an open-ended question, but it could be a resource. It could be a tip. It could be a.
I mean, I'll say this. I'm not good with endings. The longer I go on, the more awkward it gets. But since we are talking about Minority Mental Health Month, I think as goes with any type of awareness month, anything, you have to really dig deeper than beyond just being aware.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to say all the slogans and everything and wear the bumper sticker or the pin on your lapel, but you really, really have to dig deeper. You have to immerse yourself in Black literature, Latinx literature, Indigenous, like all of the great thinkers, things that we don't learn in high school and for very awful reasons, in junior high and all the way down. We don't hear about these great minds, these great leaders. And so really, really educate yourself, really see what you can do to be a part of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
If you're white, obviously you don't want to lead the movement, but you should also see, like, what am I capable of? What am I complicit in? And how can I be a better person overall? Because it's not enough to say, like, well, I'm not racist because I support Black Lives Matter or I have a Mexican friend. So really, really, to all you people out there in Facebook and YouTube land, just really, really consider of what can I do to be a better ally, a better accomplice, and what do I need to change about myself?
Mm-hmm.
What are these thoughts that I've learned institutionally that have been passed on me? What are these actions that I've taken that I don't, these microaggressions, what have you, that I never even realize that contribute to racism? Not saying that everyone, like every white person is super racist or anything like that, but we all can be better. That's the thing, is that we all can be better. And that's what I want people to take away from these type of awareness months, whether it be Minority Mental Health Month and African American Month, Black History Month. Be better. Take it. Don't just say. Don't use Minority Mental Health Month to bring out the token Black person, token Mexican person, and say, like, oh, okay, well, we put Black people on a platform. Now let's move on. So please, please, please. That's my final words, I guess.
I like that, Rudy. It's such a good statement and sentiment, because we have these special months where we do raise the awareness, but that needs to be on an ongoing effort. And I think you are totally correct. It starts with where you are as a person, and examining your privilege, examining the systems you were taught, that you grew up in, and that you want to see change. You need to start by educating yourself. I'm trying to do that right now, and I appreciate you saying that. And I think it boils down to, we all want to be better. We need to be better humans, and we need to start with ourselves. So thank you for sharing that, Rudy. I appreciate it.
Yes, and dare to be uncomfortable.
Dare. I agree.
I'd say for me, for people who are living with a mental illness, the first thing is to know that there's no shame there. For me, being and living in the shadows was actually more painful than any stigma that I would encounter after sharing my story. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to shout it to the rooftops like we do, but first settling for yourself that it's okay, and it's okay to not be okay, and then allow that to be your launching pad to create a wellness plan that works for you. Resources, definitely NAMI.org, NAMIHillsboro.org. And relative to Minority Mental Health Month, I think it's for us to recognize that we all have implicit bias. All of us, our experiences, where we grew up, who we are, everything, all of our experiences have shaped our body of information. And we can acknowledge that we don't know everything. Just because we know it doesn't mean it's right. And this is where the emotional intelligence must come in, for us to be self-aware, self-regulate, and to develop and cultivate empathy. That really comes from information and an understanding, and having courageous conversations. This is a courageous conversation. Asking questions, and like Rudy said, being willing to sit with discomfort. When it comes to race relations in this country, I say that it's got to be like couples therapy. You're not going to like everything that you hear, but you're committed to the relationship. So you're going to sit there and you're going to hear about it, and then you're going to commit to change, because the we is greater than the me.
Oh my gosh, Natasha, so true. And the other thing that, for me, I had tried, educating myself at different points in my life, but I never fully committed until the recent tragedies. And I felt such shame and guilt surrounding that. But we have to just remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And this is a lifelong change and a lifelong education I want to commit to, and I want to move forward with. So thank you for that. Kia.
Yeah, that was good. I think for me, what comes to mind is it's okay to take a break, because I, recently made the decision that I need to take a break from podcasting, just like I'm taking a break from social media, until I'm in a better space in terms of making sure that the meds that I'm on are effective. Really having to alter some of the things that I would normally do because of COVID. Because this pandemic can really make people feel lonely and isolated. And so that's the biggest thing that I would encourage people to let them know, that it's okay to take a break from social media, from the news. If you need to take a few days off from work, whatever you need to do to take time to refill your cup up. We often hear about it all the time on social media, the meme that goes around and say you can't get from an empty cup. And so it's important to take time to refill your cup so that you can be the best version of yourself.
That is so true in so many ways, Kia, and I appreciate that so much. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to start where you are. I think that was what we all shared, and I am so grateful to you guys for not only telling your stories on the This Is My Brave stage over the years, for being a part of the Brave family, for coming back together, and for doing this today. And I hope that our viewers enjoyed the show. I hope that everyone will come back and join us on Tuesday. We have a special edition of Brave TV on Tuesday, July 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern, our second episode of the season, where I talk with Dr. Tony Span of Henry Health, which is a minority mental health provider that's based in DC that provides culturally intentional care. They're a really special organization. I hope everyone tunes in to learn more about them. And thank you again for joining us today. So good to see you guys. See you Tuesday evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.